Well, hello folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. Where we take a look at these markets, we do it from a neoclassical perspective, each time asking ourselves just that one question. What happened today? What does it tell us about the coming ones? I do this show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube. It's under the channel, L.A. Little. If you haven't subscribed, reach up there, hit the button, subscribe. Anytime I push content, you'll be notified. As far as what did happen today, let's take a look at the charts. Or actually, let's look at the quotes first. We had the DAX up big, 2.25, 2.5 on the CACs. 0.3% or almost 0.4 on the Nikkei, 1.5% on the Hang Seng, Dow up 1.4, almost 1.5, 2% on the S&P, 2.25 on both the NDX and the NASDAQ. Even the Russell was up 1.5%. Bonds took a little bit of a hit, not too bad. Silver and gold down fairly significant, 1% on gold. And if we look at oil actually bucked the trend up 1.5%. Moving to the charts, let's see what they look like. We're going to start with the overseas markets. I talked about the Australian market being able to push higher. That did, but really what I want to talk about is the German market. You know, last night for me, the one that really stood out was this German market. And the reason I say that is when we were looking at the German market, it was coming into a swing point low. That low here, right, had a huge volume on it. As we came into it the night before, trades under it, back over it, absolutely no volume. That's about as good a sign as you can get that you're going to get some sort of a bounce out of it. U.S. market's been following German market, the Asian, not the German, the Asian, but the German and the French markets, the European markets in general. And that type of a setup here to push back the other way was in fact what took place. When that did, that led to a gap up on the U.S. markets. If you look at France, it did the same thing. Nice big spike up. That was what set the tone. That was what got us off and running this morning. And if we take a look at those markets, you can see what I'm talking about. A nice big spike up to start the day. Just held it all day, had a little bit of a drift down, but closes at the highs. So what we have now and what we've set up in a number of these markets and what we should be looking at, you had a trend, in some cases transition, in this case it was. Actually, it was a reaffirmation. The transition took place right back before there. But that affirmation, as it comes down, right, it breaks a swing point low here. And so what you have is you have a retest, regenerate starting to take place on this time frame. Now, on this particular chart, right, it's a big swing point low, right? It's a wide price spread bar. So it's not going to mean as much here because you'd only get the overlap on that one, right, if you come all the way back up. But it's going to mean something elsewhere. But even here, you can see that you're going to have a situation where the price area here is where it's going to try to get back into, and that's going to be the place that you learn something. And what you're going to learn, if I draw it off this way and bring it into that swing point lows, you're going to find that that area is where you're going to find resistance. So I would think top of this bar, which is the breakdown bar, becomes the key spot to look on the way back up. But we're actually going to get some better indications elsewhere, and I'm going to show you those as we go along. If we move over, look at the NASDAQ itself comes back up, and so those things I was just talking about, you're going to see them here because what you're doing is bearish retest regens. This one already getting into it because you're coming back within 6 bars. That retest regen usually gets to the other side, so that becomes the area that's going to try to get to. Of course, it's got to deal with this breakdown bar on the way back up there. So again, just as we were looking at on the S&P 500, this little overlap area right here is going to be the key spot on the way back up. So you can see how the market's telling you already, it's giving you an indication of where that resistance should lie, where those sellers should show up. And that, of course, is information that you can use in your decision process about what to do with respect to these markets. If we take a look at the NDX, set up about the same way, not much difference there. It's just farther along. Again, retest regens is where you're going to want to be looking, and so if you're looking at this one and you're trying to find it, look at your prior swing point low, draw in your bearish retest regenerate. It's going to try to get to the top, has the same issue, a little overlap area there. That's going to be resistance on the way back up. So I would expect that tomorrow you're going to see these indexes try to push up into that area. If we look at the Russell been the weakest. Of course, now the Russell was the only one to actually break under the August lows. That retest regen is there. It's just starting it out now. And again, if this makes it to the other side, it's going to have that same sort of an overlap area up there, or a congruent area in that zone. If we move over and look at some of the sectors, on the sector watch, we've got some indications last night that was also giving us support on this idea that we'd get a push today. In particular, we had some under-overs. If we look at the transportation, that was one of them. You can see kind of the push up. This one is going to come back into a resistance zone, but it's quite a ways up. SOX, I believe, also, if I remember right, gave us an indication. There's the under back over, got the push. Now the SOX is fairly far along already in that retest regen, so you can see it here. And in this particular case, right, the breakdown bar on this one isn't like the others. The big volume is here. You're already over that. So we're going to be able to watch some of these sectors now to give us a heads up as to what's going to happen next. For example, if they can get back over this bar's high, that's going to give us an early indication that we're going to actually move higher. We're going to go back to a sideways type trend, and then we're probably going to be able to get some sort of a range going, and we can think a larger, higher range again, right? And so instead of the bottom of the range, this thing ends up being this part of it, and we'll see if it can get back up there and test those highs. But what we're always looking for is something that will tell us, give us some sort of an early indication of what's next. And I think some of these, like the SOX, maybe the financials, if we look at the financials, they also gave us the under-over on less volume. They're trading off this swing point low, so the top of that one is going to be the place that we're going to be looking. So indications, we probably go a little bit higher before we start to pull back, and then we're also going to get some early indications off of some of these sectors, most likely, to tell us how high and how far this thing can go. So that's what I'd be looking at. As far as tomorrow, I would expect more push up, and then after that, probably even midday tomorrow potentially, we're going to get some sort of a indication as to just how far this thing's going to go. It'll level out. We may even end down slightly tomorrow. But we're going to have some tests take place here. That's going to give us more of a feel as to just how far this bounce can travel. So got a good setup last night, got the good move. Hopefully you took part of it, and we'll see what the next one gives us. Until then, have a great one. Thanks for joining me. Tell a friend, tell two. I'm LA. This is and it was your daily NeoTA wrap. Have a great night, and I'll see you next time. Good night.